What's up, everybody? Welcome to SLC Puck! I'm your host, American-born Austin Facer, and I am so excited to be with you guys for episode 82 of SLC Puck. Now, why did I make the distinction that I'm American-born? I think a lot of you probably knew that already if you knew that I was born and raised here in Utah. And yeah, Utah's a part of America, right? I think it still is, right? Well, the reason why I specified that is because I'm declaring my fanhood for a different hockey team this week. Yes, that's right. The Utah Hockey Club is off. It's the Four Nations face-off break for the NHL this week, which means four squads are pitted against each other. One will emerge as champion of the Four Nations face-off. The four squads competing: Finland, featuring two Utah Hockey Club players, Olli Mata and Juuso Välimäki. Canada is another team in the mix. Sweden and the good old red, white, and blue, the United States of America. That's who I'm pulling for in this one. A little international hockey this week in lieu of the typical NHL All-Star game. This is a big, big deal. People in Utah should care a lot. This is big. International hockey is a huge part of Utah's hockey history, and we're going to dive into that just a little bit and talk a little bit about the Four Nations face-off as well. That is, the puck is dropping on that right now, actually. It's we're coming to you on Wednesday, February 12th. Canada and Sweden just began their game on TNT, Max, all that good stuff. We're going to see USA, Finland tomorrow, and then games are going to go through Thursday, February 20th. That's when the championship game will be played. I believe these games are happening, in Montreal and Boston, so a lot of fun things going on. But you know what is always going on? It's on 24/7. It doesn't matter who's playing, who's not. SLCPuck.shop is always on. It's always live. We've got a lot of great stuff for you here at SLCPuck.shop. Don't forget to check it out. We got hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, pieces of flair, lots of great stuff. It's a great way to support the show, and you're invited to make a donation if you'd like, and I'll send you a little thank you video as my way of saying thank you for doing so. What's up, guys? Hey, just wanted to interrupt this episode really quick to give you an update on our exciting partnership with Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. We've been giving away a $250 gift card for every episode in February. We have our first two winners. Super, super excited to announce that Connor P. and Gary S. have won $250 gift cards each. They've been contacted. They're thrilled. They're excited. And probably their significant other is pretty excited about this as well. I'm guessing. This is the kind of deal, especially around Valentine's Day, that might get you out of the penalty box, so to speak. So really, really, really happy to have the support of Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. Big supporters of the show. We really appreciate them. If you haven't entered the raffle yet, do so now, because even if you haven't won, you're still in the running. You should enter. You can enter on multiple devices if you want. It's really easy. Again, all you got to do is scan this QR code here in the corner. I've got it up in the other corner during the episode. That's if you're listening to this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, just go to the link in the description. You can enter the raffle that way. But super, super easy to get in the runnings for a great giveaway from the guys there at Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. And what's best, you don't even have to win to take advantage of their support of SLC Puck. You go into either one of their locations, Cottonwood Heights, Trolley Square, just mention SLC Puck. They'll knock $100 off of any purchase. So super, super cool. We really, really, really love the guys over there at both of those locations. So go ahead and check them out. Get in the running now. You're still in it if you haven't won yet. We'll have more giveaways in February and probably beyond, so stay tuned for that. Really, really appreciate the support. They've got some great stuff over there at Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers too, and Jonathan's Jewelry. 2 locations. They do awesome stuff there, so go ahead and check them out. Grab some ice, so to speak, and get in this drawing if you haven't already, for heaven's sake, all right? Just do it. Just freaking do it, all right? Now let's get back to the show right now. But anyway, welcome into SLC Puck, episode 82. No Utah Hockey Club games this week, but that doesn't mean we're going to take a break here at SLC Puck. We're not going to do it. It doesn't even matter that my apartment got flooded and I've been living in a hotel for a couple days. Nothing is stopping me from doing the show. Not the Navy SEALs, not the SWAT team, not the Coast Guard, not 2 inches of water covering the floor of my apartment. Nothing stopping me from doing SLC Puck, regardless of the conditions that we may face. But even though there are no games this week for the Utah Hockey Club, and this is the point of the season when we typically have the NHL All-Star Game and whatnot, I still thought it was important to talk about what's happening, because I think that this is something that people here in Utah can and should be very excited about, because international hockey, as I said, is a huge part of our hockey history here. I'm referring, of course, to the 2002 Olympic Winter Games. And guess what? We got the Olympics coming back in 2034 as well. Woo! It's going to be fun. But I just to answer a couple key questions as to why the NHL is adopting a different style of tournament for this year. I think there's a couple reasons for that, and I am just speculating here. I'm sure there's a better answer that's been published and maybe articulated better elsewhere. But I think a couple factors for this. For one, All-Star games are kind of stupid. Let's be totally honest. Let's think about, for example, the NFL's version of the All-Star game, the Pro Bowl. It's horrific. It's truly a wretched sports product. I don't think anybody enjoys watching that. I've been to a Pro Bowl in person. It's just as boring as it looks on TV. In fact, had it not, here's what was distracting about the Pro Bowl when I went to it in Orlando, I think 5 years ago, probably this winter. The only thing that I remember from the game, I didn't watch a second of it, was that it was announced that Kobe Bryant passed away in the middle of the first quarter, and it was incredibly distracting to get absorbed into that story. I don't think anybody in the stadium in Orlando was following the game. I don't think anybody cared. They somehow found a way to care even less. It's because they were, so enthralled by the Kobe Bryant story. So that's my NFL All-Star Game memory. All-Star games in other sports aren't particularly good either. I think it's always cool to have that achievement if you're a player or a fan of players. Where that guy's an all-star. That's that means something. That's a check mark. That's a little bit of validation that he's one of the better players in the league. But the games themselves are really quite boring. And the NHL All-Star Game, I think, has gotten very boring over time as well. I think they've tried a lot of different formats to spice it up and make it interesting. But I think the NHL really understands that hockey, probably more in a lot of ways, it is so niche, but that niche expands across the world. Hockey has very diehard fans in Finland, in Sweden, in Canada, in the United States, in other countries. It's amazing to see how much the game of hockey is growing. I was just scrolling on Instagram the other day, and I saw people were playing hockey in the middle of a little city plaza in Pakistan. I know that there's upstart leagues happening in Africa and India. Hockey is becoming a global sport, and I think leaning into these international tournaments it's really kind of that way of embracing the international community in the sport. It is also noteworthy to acknowledge this, right? The NHL players appearing at the 2002 Olympics in Salt Lake City, that was not an insignificant moment in the sport, because that's something that has not happened very often in the history of hockey and in the history of the NHL and in the history of the Olympics. And I'm referring to this story here, doing a little bit of research on this. I knew there had been in recent Olympics that NHL players had not participated. I hadn't realized how long that had been going on. So I found this great article that was published last year, and I'm on the St. Louis Blues website. This was published on NHL.com as well. It populated on the St. Louis Blues website for some reason. But this was published last year, February 7th, 2024. For the first time in over a decade, the NHL will be going back to the Olympics. During a press conference February 2nd, again, that's 2024, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman announced the league had reached an agreement to send its players to both the 2026 and 2030 Olympic Games for the first time since 2014. Very interesting. And so continuing on, Gary Bettman said this agreement is part of a larger push from the NHL for more international best-on-best competition between its players. Moving forward, he said the league plans to rotate every 2 years between the Olympics and the World Cup of Hockey, which was announced today, by the way, for 2026, I believe, or 2028, excuse me. Yeah, the Olympics are going to be next year. To jumpstart that process, in place of the 2025 NHL All-Star Game, the league will host the NHL Four Nations Face-Off, a tournament between players from the United States, Canada, Sweden, and Finland. The event will be hosted February 12th through the 20th in 2 cities, one in the United States, one in Canada. We're here now. That ended up being Boston and Montreal. And this is something that was really interesting because the NHL has not always had like a presence in the Olympics. That means some of the very best players in hockey haven't had the opportunity to compete for their countries. And I found that very, very interesting. The last World Cup of Hockey was held in 2016. So these tournaments will be the first chance for plenty of current stars like Edmonton's Connor McDavid and Toronto's Austin Matthews, who spells his name stupidly, to play for their countries on such an important stage. This agreement, so this continues on. This is the Blues coverage of that story. But again, super, super interesting. I had not realized that in his entire NHL career, Connor McDavid has never represented Team Canada in a best-on-best tournament. And I think that's something really interesting. And for us here in Utah, the Olympics are something we really love, really embrace. We have so many Olympic training venues scattered throughout the Salt Lake Valley, up in Park City as well, all that good stuff, right? It definitely means something to us. It should mean something to us here in Utah that the NHL is getting back in bed, so to speak, with the Olympics, with an embrace on international hockey, because it's going to be really, really significant when the Olympics arrive in 2034, and we see best on best hockey hosted at the Delta Center, perhaps at the Maverick Center, any of the places that'll host these games. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're 9 years away. It's not hard to imagine a future in which we have some Utah Hockey Club players playing in the Olympics. I think it would be a lot of fun to see a guy like T. Jaginla playing in the Olympics, right? His dad, Jerome, I don't know if you remember that guy. He played for Team Canada back in 2002. He was on the gold medal winning team. It was such a tremendous moment in Utah hockey history to have a best on best international tournament here. We're going to get it again. And this Four Nations Face-Off tournament is such an important step. And just thinking about these international tournaments really puts like a smile on my face when I think about the memories. I'm wearing right now, and if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, you're missing out on my pretty face. So tune over to YouTube to check it out. But also you'll notice my wardrobe. I'm wearing a Karl Malone Dream Team 1996 jersey. I did have an American jersey from 2002, and I have a Canadian jersey hung up behind me from 2002. But that was such an incredible memory for me in my early hockey loving days. As I've talked about so many times on the show, I really did fall in love with hockey around the age of 8 or 9. So do the math there. I was born in 92. That meant right as I was super, super, super into playing hockey, super excited about playing for DCYHA, the Wind. We were getting all these new rinks around the Salt Lake Valley. Hockey was on fire. Going to an Olympic hockey game was such a cherished, special memory, and getting involved with all the hockey stuff that was happening in 2002. I remember my dad got us tickets to see the biggest game in the round robin stage. We saw Team Canada, which had my hero, Paul Kariya, on it, against the defending gold medalists, the Czech Republic. They faced off at the E Center, as it was called back then, the Maverick Center. I remember getting all worked up. My parents got me a Canada jersey just for the event because, I was going to be cheering for Canada in that one. And I was super excited to see my hero, Paul Kariya, at the time. I remember we got to the E Center very early so that we could, watch warm-ups. I got all the way down on the glass, and I was just banging on the glass like a freaking maniac, trying to get Paul Kariya's attention. I wanted to communicate to him that I wore number 9 as well because he was my hero, and I was like so excited to be there. I was trying to communicate all these things as like a little 10-year-old through like a very thick layer of plexiglass. Paul Kariya did not turn around and acknowledge me, but that's okay. I still had a great time. It ended up being a really good game. I think it was a tie, I believe. But as the tournament went on, I think the magic of the moment just sort of increased. And, it was around that same time that the Miracle movie came out, with Kurt Russell, paying tribute to the 1980 Lake Placid Team USA, win over Russia. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. All that was happening right around the same time. Like, it was hockey and the Olympics and having the best players in the world. It was like a fever pitch right then. And it really makes me super excited to see that we're going to have that again in 2034. And that's what I think that's what this tournament, the Four Nations face-off, makes me think about, makes me feel. And I'm looking forward to a lot of great hockey as well. It's going to be a really, really fun tournament. And let's just run through some of the details again. So 2 cities hosting this, right? Montreal, Boston. Tournament starts now. Canada and Sweden are facing off, and then it runs through Thursday, February 20th, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a different structure here, which I think is kind of interesting. And I had the good fortune of being on the Utah Hockey Podcast with Michael Wolf and Kelly Quayle. If I say their name wrong, I apologize. But we were talking about this last night. And, we talked about how this could be like a good testing sort of field for some different rules, some different things that could be interesting to add to the NHL game. And one thing that's being added that I think is kind of interesting is a new point system in the standings. Now, I think they're doing this just primarily because there's only 4 teams in this tournament, but it could be maybe perhaps a sign of things to come in the future for the NHL. So here's the point system right now in the NHL right now. We know 2 points for a win in regulation, 1 point or in overtime, or just 1 point for a loss in overtime. No points for a loss straight up in regulation. Four Nations is doing it a little bit differently this time around. 3 points for a win in regulation to the winners, 2 points for a win in overtime or shootout, 1 point for a loss in overtime or shootout, and 0 points for a loss in regulation. The 2 teams with the best tournament record will then advance to a 1-game final. Again, that's going to be on the 20th. So we'll be talking about this for the next week or so. But the rosters, I think, are also something to watch. And as I said, it's incredibly exciting if you're a hockey fan, not only from Utah or from the United States of America, but I'm sure if you're a hockey fan in Canada, which, by the way, they take hockey very seriously up there. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know if I'm breaking any news here, or a hockey fan in Finland or Sweden, but you're seeing a best on best tournament, guys wearing the Canadian sweater maybe for the first time ever, guys wearing maybe not first time ever, but the first time since they become like established professionals. And it's going to be really exciting to see a lot of these players on the ice at the same time competing, which they might not be if this was an all-star game, right? If this was just an all-star game, I think we've all seen, how those can go. It can be a little bit of just like a dilly down, like a glorified drop-in sometimes. It's not super engaging or interesting, if you're a hardcore hockey fan. But I suspect this definitely will be. So let's just run through the rosters really quick as a reminder. We've talked about this a little bit, and we're going to go into a major snub as well as one of these rosters. And we've talked about this again before on the podcast. We'll go into it a little bit in detail. But Canada's roster is highlighted by guys like Sam Bennett, Sidney Crosby, Seth Jarvis, who scored a couple goals on the Utah Hockey Club last week, Nathan McKinnon, Brad Marchand, Mitch Marner, Connor McDavid, Mark Stone. Forward group, right? Defensemen include Drew Doughty, Cale Makar, Josh Morrissey, Shea Theodore. Goaltending, Jordan Bennington, crazy person, Aiden Hill, all that good stuff. Team Finland, again, some of the highlights include Sebastian Aho, Alexander Barkov, Rope Hines, Patrick Laine, Mikko Rantanen, Defensemen include a couple of our boys, Oli Mata, Juuso Välimäki, who will be playing in the same pairing together. So that's kind of interesting. They're getting those might end up being valuable reps for the Utah Hockey Club when they come back in action. If they can find a nice rhythm, it might be interesting to keep them together as maybe the third defensive pairing or second. We'll just see how it goes for the Utah Hockey Club. Sweden highlights include Philip Forsberg, Leo Carlsson, William Nylander, Elias Pettersson, Mika Zibanejad. Defensemen include Rasmus Dahlin, Victor Hedman, Erik Karlsson, among others. The United States, they're saying this could be the best gathering of American talent in the history of international hockey. And it's hard to argue with that. I mean, let's just look at the forward group here. Kyle Connor from the Winnipeg Jets, Jack Eichel, Jake Gensel, Austin Matthews, again, who spells his name wrong, JT Miller, the Tkachuk brothers. Defensemen include Adam Fox, Zach Werenski, who might be the Norris Trophy winner, Charlie McAvoy, Noah Hannafin. Goaltending, probably the National Hockey League's most valuable player this year, the Hart Trophy winner, Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman. So really, really, really talented group. It's going to be a lot of fun to see all these guys on the ice competing against each other. You might have noticed, though, that the American group does not include one name on it. And we've talked about this a lot on the show. Clayton Keller is a notable snub on this roster, and here's why it's so notable. I'm going to flip over to my screen here. I have here a list of American NHL players here and their stats this season sorted by points. Let's see how long it takes us to find Clayton Keller's name. Why don't we do that? It'll be a fun little game. Okay, so number 1 with 69 points, nice. Kyle Connor, tied for first with 69 points, nice. Jack Eichel. Jack Hughes, not far behind at 65. And, oh my gosh, the game's over. Clayton Keller, 4th place with 60 points. One ahead of Zachary Werenski and Quinn Hughes. That, I think, is what you could safely call a snub by Clayton Keller. And of Clayton Keller on this American roster. And I think it's something that is interesting to follow this season. I have earmarked December 4th as a big day for Clayton Keller because that was the day that the rosters for this team were announced. And I was interested to just see like how he would respond to the snub, to see what his reaction would be. It's gone very well. Clayton Keller kind of has it. He's kind of got like Michael Jordan energy, where if he gets pissed off a little bit, it's trouble for the other team. So in that sense, I don't think it's a bad thing that he got snubbed on this roster. It also kind of makes sense when you look at the rest of the group. You know, you look at guys like who's in this year, like Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Dylan Larkin for sure, Austin Matthews, the Tkachuk brothers certainly fit this bill. A lot of these guys play a 200-foot game where they're very active in the defensive zone. I would say that probably doesn't describe Clayton Keller's game. Clayton Keller is definitely more of an offensive-minded kind of facilitator role. Does not play a lot on the penalty kill. That to me is an indicator of why he might not be on this team. And Keller has said this as well. Keller has said in the media that he can be like a little bit challenging to play with. And maybe I didn't say that right, but he said he really wants his teammates to understand his game and how he likes to play with the puck and all that. And he feels like that makes him more effective on the ice when he's with guys who better understand his player type, his archetype. And I think all those things may have factored into why he was left off the roster. But again, it hasn't been a bad thing, right? So again, December 4th, that's the date that I have in my mind as a significant one for Clayton Keller this season. Now, before December 4th, in 25 games, Keller racked up 7 goals, 15 assists for a total of 22 points. Pretty good. Not bad, right? A little less than a point per game, but pretty good, right? But after December 4th, after the snub was in, it's been trouble for, if you've been it's been a bad day to play Clayton Keller in the Utah Hockey Club any day after December 4th, right? So since then, he's had 13 goals, 25 assists, 38 points, in 30 games, more than a point per game. He's had a chip on his shoulder, ladies and gentlemen, and I think it's been really really important. I mean, we can't live in an alternative universe, right? As much as I or you or me might want to, we have to live with the hand we're dealt. And I think it's been really really encouraging to see how Keller has responded to this perceived disrespect. And I'll say this too: it's not a bad thing in my mind that the Utah Hockey Club does not have a lot of representatives in this tournament, because to me, I read this as them being able to get a more fresh group on the ice when they return to action on the 22nd against the Kings, right? This is getting to be a really, really fun, exciting time for the Utah Hockey Club. Guys are getting healthy. The schedule is actually pretty favorable for the Utah Hockey Club. I'm going to switch back over to my screen here. I'm looking at tankathon.com. And I'm looking at the remaining schedule strength. And let's play a game again. Let's play the game where we find the Utah Hockey Club somewhere on this list. Looking at the top of the list, most difficult strength of schedule. Not seeing them anywhere up at the top. Not really seeing them in the middle either. Holy hell, I have to go all the way down to 27th to see the Utah Hockey Club on the list of strength of schedule difficulty. Meaning, if I was to count backwards, the Utah Hockey Club has the 6th easiest schedule to finish off the year. We've talked about this every episode. This is a playoff chase. This bodes really well for the Utah Hockey Club. It's going to be the most exciting time of the year when we get back from this break, when we get back from Four Nations on the 22nd. They have this easier schedule. They play the Blackhawks. Remember those guys? We played them in our first game of the season. We're going to play them 3 more times. We're going to play the Nashville Predators twice, the Buffalo Sabres once, the Seattle Kraken twice, the Anaheim Ducks once more, and then the big one, the last game of the year, St. Louis, right? That's going to be a huge game. That one could decide whether or not Utah Hockey Club ends up making the postseason or not. And some of the more challenging games, I think what's encouraging about a lot of these difficult games, they don't have to play any of these teams twice. They face the Jets just once more, the Oilers once more, the Stars once more, the Wild once more, the Panthers once more, and the Toronto Maple Leafs one more time. One more time. You like that Daft Punk song, by the way? I love that Daft Punk song. I like that. That song gets me up in the morning. I think that's a good one. And speaking of one more time, I think we got to get back to the topic of the nickname for the Utah Hockey Club, the permanent moniker one more time. Now, again, this has been such a topic of discussion. And sorry, I know that was an abrupt end to what I was saying about Four Nations and the Utah Hockey Club and all that. We'll get back into that. We have a lot more time to talk about this before the Utah Hockey Club gets back on the ice 10 days from now. But what is not going away is the discussion that we've been having for quite a while, almost since the first episode of SLC Puck, on the team's permanent nickname. Now, I've, if you've been following the show, you know that I've kind of gone back and forth on this. I was team Outlaws from the beginning. However, I have been convinced after much persuasion, mostly by the great work that you guys have done on social media to sort of build a culture around this name. I am now on Team Mammoth myself. But, what we really need to do in weighing in on this is we need to consult the people who are probably most heavily invested in each name, right? We need to consult with the Utah Hockey Club community, which is, I guess, all of us, right? We need to consult with the Mammoth community, which can include paleontologists and, fans of Jurassic Park and, the good people of Fairview, Utah, who have a giant replica of a woolly mammoth, skeleton in their museum down there. We also need to consult the cowboy. We need to know what the cowpokes think about the Utah Outlaws nickname. So without further ado, I'd like to reintroduce my good friend, the Disco Cowboy. He's got some thoughts on this. So I reached out to him on Cameo. He's been a frequent contributor to the podcast. Let's reach out to Disco Cowboy and see what he has to say about the nickname.
What's going on, hockey people out there in Utah? Hey, Austin, it's your boy DC right down in Ding Dong, Texas. Your favorite wild swapping, stuff, dipping, tobacco, chewing, coffee pot, dodging, frog, gigging, alligator, thumbing, disco, dancing, gravy, stopping, stunt, jumping, disco, dancing, disco, cowboy. Brought to you by Piggly Wiggly Supermarkets with over 500 locations in 17 states. Maybe there's a Piggly Wiggly near you. Well, hell, I understand that, Outlaws has been named as one of the finalists for Utah's NHL team name. Explain why that's a better choice than Utah Mammoth, Utah Hockey, or Utah Hockey Club.
This is me giving him the prompt.
Okay, well, Utah Hockey Club sucks. All right, that's a terrible name. Sounds like just a bunch of guys meeting together to play hockey. No. Utah Mammoths. Listen when I say this. I'm going to say Utah Mammoths. Now listen to this. Utah Outlaws. Utah Outlaws. Utah Outlaws. That's it. It flows right off the tongue. It's way better, all right? That's it. Now, personally, I got other ideas for team names that are much better.
Oh, no.
All right? I really like the Utah Stormin' Mormons and also the Utah Former Mormons. Those kind of got a nice flow to them, too. And also my favorite, the Utah Super Soakers. You know what I'm talking about out there in Utah. Woo! Hey, see you on the flip side. Hey, when are you going to have me on that podcast? I got some
Okay. Thank you very much, Disco Cowboy. So that was a real cowboy weighing in on his thoughts. I think he makes a persuasive argument. Utah Outlaws, yeah, that does kind of roll off the tongue real nice. Utah Mammoth, a little bit more in your mouth when you say that. So Utah Outlaws, I think I haven't been persuaded back on that team quite yet, but Disco Cowboy does make an excellent point. So we appreciate him weighing in. Oh, excuse me. We appreciate him weighing in on the issue from Texas and being brought to us by the good folks at Piggly Wiggly, which I think is a grocery store down there. So anyway, that's SLC Puck for you. Hey, get back to watching Canada, Sweden, why don't you? And we're going to continue. We'll keep rolling through SLC Puck episodes through the break. Oh, I want to give another big thanks to our good friends at Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. We've drawn another winner. We draw winners before every episode, and so this winner's been contacted. We've reached out to him. We've told him about the gift card, $250 gift card. If you want to enter the drawing, again, just scan this QR code right here to my right to do so. If you haven't won yet, we just might get to you soon, so make sure you keep entering that, and we appreciate the good folks at Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry for doing that in conjunction with SLC Puck. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out SLC Puck on social media. Tune into the hotline. Leave your takes, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, guys.